All right, so this morning we are going to walk through DocuSign from start to finish, from once you create that opportunity in Command, all the way through submitting those documents to Lynn and Alita for compliance review. As we're going through the training this morning, please interrupt me with any questions, unmute yourself, ask in the chat box. And as we're going through the process, I'll also pause to see if there are any questions. But this training is all for you, so make sure you let me know if there's anything you want me to show you again or need more information on. So to get started, I'm going to go to opportunities because that's where I manage my sales and my current active clients. So I'm going to click on the opportunities icon, which is the two hands shaking. And then for me personally, I like to come to the all opportunities tab at the top because it makes it really easy to see all the opportunities that I have in a list. So it's really simple. And here's the opportunity that I made for this morning. So 1234 Main Street. You can see here, I have the naming convention of my opportunity is 1234 Main Street dash last name dash listing. And it's very important that when you create your opportunities, whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, that you use this same naming convention, because this is what will help the MCA office ensure that all the documents that they receive and review and all the checks all are connected to the correct property. So always make sure that you put the property address, last name, and if it's a buyer or listing. I filled in most of this information over here in the general information, which is from when I created the opportunity. I've also added the property information over here. The benefit of going through and adding as much information in your opportunity as possible is that when we go to DocuSign, DocuSign will actually pull in a lot of the information from Command for us. So it just kind of saves us a little bit of work to do in DocuSign. So now that I have everything set up in opportunities, I'm going to click on the Documents tab. And then over here in the top right-hand corner, you can see a big button that says Start a Transaction. I want to kind of take a moment here to really highlight the importance of this Start a Transaction button, because by clicking this Start a Transaction button, that is what is going to allow DocuSign and opportunities to connect, and it will allow you to seamlessly add documents from DocuSign into Command. If you start a room in DocuSign, directly in DocuSign, you will never be able to retroactively connect that room to an opportunity. So make sure you always click Start a Transaction here. Another thing I want to point out is if you use .loop and you started a opportunity with .loop, you're not able to then start a DocuSign room halfway through. You would just have to finish that out through .loop. So always make sure that you click Start a Transaction here within the Documents tab of your opportunity. So I'm going to click Start a Transaction, and this is going to open up DocuSign for me. Now, I do want to point out that if you have pop-up blockers on, it will, Chrome may block this new pop-up, this new browser tab. So make sure you have pop-up blockers off or allow permissions for DocuSign. So I'm going to log in with the account that I used that I created in Command. Log in. And now it's going to take me directly to my new DocuSign room. And I know that it's the correct room because I can see here the room name is 1234 Main Street Northeast Stark Potts listing up here in the top left-hand corner. And so it has the same name as my opportunity. So that's how I know that they're connected and I'm good to go. I do want to point out right below here, there is an ID number. This is a little bit more, I want to point this out, but it's for more of a DocuSign 2.0 feature. If you ever decide you want to email yourself documents directly into your room, you do have that capability and you would use that ID number here. We're not going to go through that today, but if you have any questions about it, let me know and we can talk through it later. So before we get started doing anything in DocuSign, we need to confirm our NRDS ID, our NERDS number. And this is what is going to give or let DocuSign know that we are the member of the National Association of Realtors and the Georgia Association of Realtors, and we have access to the copywritten GAR forms. There are two ways that you can confirm your NERDS ID. We'll walk through both of them. But before you do anything, you have to make sure you confirm this NERDS ID. So the easiest way we're going to do it is right here within the Documents tab. I'm going to click on the Add button in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to select DocuSign Forms. Then I'm going to get these two logos. I'm going to select the Realtor logo for the National Association of Realtors. Then I'm going to type in my 9-digit NRDS ID, which I don't know off the top of my head, and I imagine you probably don't know it either. So right here below, they have a link that says Find Your NRDS ID. Click on that, and then now we'll be able to search using our last name, email address, or real estate license number to get our NERDS ID. So I'm going to use my last name and my license number. Click Submit, and here's my 9-digit NERDS ID. So I'm just going to highlight this, right mouse click, copy. I'm going to close this tab because I don't need it. I'll come back into DocuSign and I'm going to paste in my NERDS ID. I'm going to put in my last name here, and this is the same last name that I used to create my when I joined the Atlanta Board of Realtors. So make sure it's the same last name. If you got married or divorced or any name changes, that would cause your NERDS ID not to get validated. And then I'm going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors from this drop-down menu. And I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way to the bottom and then scroll up here kind of towards the top of the page. And then here we have Georgia Association of Realtors, and click Validate. And it says you have validated two association memberships, so the Georgia Association and the National Association of Realtors. You'll know here when you get this Add DocuSign Forms pop-up window that you're good to go. I do also want to point out that if this is your very first time confirming your NERDS ID, you will also have a secondary window that will pop up asking you to agree to the terms and conditions of the Georgia Association of Realtors contract usage. Click Agree, and then you will get this pop-up window here. That's how I know my NERDS ID is good to go, so I have access to GAR forms. The second way that you can confirm your NERDS ID is up here in the top right-hand corner where you see your initials or a picture of yourself if you've added one. Click on Preferences from the drop-down menu. Then in the menu on the left, click on Integrations, and then scroll down just a little bit. And here's our NERDS ID information. And this is going to give you the same link to find your ID right here where it says Clear for Me. If you don't have your NERDS ID in there, you can click there. Again, use your last name, email address, and license number to find your NERDS ID. Same process, but you need to make sure that this is confirmed before you actually start working on a contract start working on GAR forms. Any questions on confirming your NERDS ID? All right, so I'm going to go back to the room that we just created. And I'm going to jump right back into the Documents tab because I want to pick up right where we left off. So when you click Start a Transaction in your opportunity, it's going to create a new DocuSign room, and it's going to look just like this. However, before you actually start adding documents, so adding your buyer brokerage or listing agreement or purchase and sale agreement, we need to go into the Details tab up here in the top left-hand corner, and we need to fill in as much information that we have about the details of this transaction as possible, because it's this information that we add in the Details tab that will pre-populate all of our documents and all of our GAR forms. So it's going to save you a little bit of work from having to type in a property address or buyer seller's name numerous times. So I'm going to click Details. And the way that this page is set up is kind of on the 3/4 of the page on the left-hand side is going to be all about the specific property. So here's our address information, listing details, offer details. And then that right quarter of the page is going to be all about our clients. So either seller 1 here, seller 2, scroll down, we have listing agent 1, keep scrolling down, we have buyer 1. So if you're working with a buyer, you can fill in their information here. So let's go ahead and fill this in as much as possible. So to do that, I'm going to click Edit in the top right-hand corner. And I'm just going to start at the top of the page and work my way down. And I'm going to fill in as much of the information that I have at this moment. You can always come back in and add and edit anything. So don't worry. And especially if you're working with a buyer, when you first send out that buyer brokerage agreement, you're likely not going to have a property that you're going to be under contract on. So you would come back later once you found that house and then put in the address. So I'm just going to start here, filling this in, local currency, US dollar, MLS ID. So I would just paste this directly out of FMLS. Origin of lead, it doesn't really matter. Company room status, I don't really need to worry about that. Since this is a listing, I do know the address, so I'm gonna type in 1234 Main Street, Northeast, Atlanta, Fulton County. And then we'll do Georgia, zip code 30342. Property type, we'll do single residential detached. Year built, I'll do 2004. Special circumstances, no special circumstances. Scrolling down, listing date. So I'm going to select today's date as the listing date. Expiration date, let's do April 19th. Original listing amount, we'll do 425,000. Current listing amount, 425,000. I just put it in every single box, so that way, whichever field these boxes are mapped to, it'll populate. Scrolling down, we have offer details. Now, we're just getting ready to list this property, so I don't have any offer details, so I'll leave this blank for now. Scrolling down, highest bid, don't have that. Closing details, additional information, property details. I don't have any of this, so I'm going to leave this blank. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and now I'm going to go over to that column on the right-hand side, and I'm going to fill in the information for my clients. So you'll notice here for seller 1, it says Tony Stark with his cell phone number and email address. This information is what is pulled directly in from Command. So I do want to point out that if you create a contact in Command, then immediately create an opportunity, then immediately create a DocuSign room, the system won't have had enough time to save that contact information, so it likely won't pull through into DocuSign, but 9 times out of 10, it will pull through your contact's information. In the event that DocuSign doesn't pull that information, please be sure to at least fill in your client's names and email addresses. It is very important that you include this information on the details tab, because this is what's going to let the system know which email address to send the documents to for signature. If they do not have an email address, the system will not be able to send those documents for signature. So we have our names here. Scrolling down, I don't need to fill in their address, their home address. Seller 2, Pepper Potts, her email address, which is just my personal one for today. And then scrolling down, we have listing agent, which is myself. So here's my name, my business number, email, my company. Now it's going to default to Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. However, I would recommend just delete Realty out of the name, which seems like a really silly, unnecessary thing to do. But for whatever reason, the size of the boxes on the GAR forms for company name aren't very big. And so Keller, when you add Realty in there, it just kind of, the name goes over the text of the document. So I just prefer to remove it. And Lynn and Alita confirmed that Keller Williams First Atlanta is fine. Finish our address here, state Georgia, perfect. It pulled all that through. If I were working with another listing agent, I would put his or her information here. Now I want to scroll down, because below listing agent, now we have buyer 1. Now, if you're working with a buyer, please be sure to put his or her information down here in buyer 1. I would recommend, for simplicity, don't put any co-op agent information or their client's information in this page of DocuSign, just to simplify it. You don't ever want to send a document directly to a co-op agent or to his or her clients from DocuSign. You always want to make sure you email it as a PDF, because of the way DocuSign works. And we'll walk through that in just a few minutes when we go through an envelope. But I just want to preface that here, and then I'll reiterate it again when we're in the envelope. But you could always, if you're working with buyers, put in their information here. And scrolling down to buyer's agent, you could put in your co-op agent's name here and company and information. I just want to go ahead and warn you again, do not send I do not recommend sending a document to a co-op agent for signature directly through DocuSign. I would always recommend sending it to sending it to them as a PDF through email. So we've gone through and we've updated all of the details about the property and our clients. So I'm going to click Save in the bottom right-hand corner. Any questions so far on anything that we've gone over? All right. So now that we filled in our details, now we can start adding GAR forms. So I'm going to go to the Documents tab. And this is where we're going to add all of our GAR forms. So this will be where we add our buyer brokerage, our listing agreement, purchase and sale. Now you'll notice here we have this Room Docs folder. The Room Docs folder is going to be the default folder in which any document that you add to this room will be placed in. So when you add a GAR form, or if you upload a GAR form, or when you get a signed form, they're all going to default into the Room Docs folder. However, I know some people like to be really organized and they want to have their listing agreements broken out from their binding contract versus their documents in negotiation, and that's fine. So if you want to organize your documents and you want to have separate folders, you can add folders by going to the actions in the top right-hand corner, click add folder, and then we'll just give this a name. So I'll do this listing agreement. I'm going to click create. And now I've added my new folder here. And you can add as many folders as you want. I do recommend that you find a organization system that works well for you, because throughout a transaction, you're going to have a lot of documents and it's going to start to get kind of messy. So just find the system that works best for you. So now that we've set up our folders, now let's start adding our GAR forms. To do that, I'm going to click on add in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to select DocuSign forms. I'll give this a second to load. It may take the system a second to load, maybe like up to a minute. Be patient with it. As long as you have that dark gray screen, that does mean that DocuSign is working. So just give it a little bit of time. We're going to leave this first drop-down menu as the DocuSign Forms library. And then we're going to select library. And I'm going to select Georgia Association of Realtors. And now this is going to pull up all 180 GAR forms, which is a lot. So now we can go through and we can search for the specific forms that we want. So I want the exclusive seller listing agreement. Now you notice here I have 3 different options. You do need to learn the exact form numbers that you're going to be using. So for the seller listing agreement, I'm going to use form F101. The other one is for commercial and the other is a non-exclusive. But I want to use the F101. And then since we have a listing, we also need to use the seller's property disclosure. So here we have 4 different options. So I'm just going to go through and make sure I pick out the correct one. This first one is for a condo. The second is land lot, new construction. And then the 301 form is the correct one. And you'll notice that every time I select a document, this counter in the bottom left-hand corner is updated. I recommend that just for time's sake, go through and select all the forms that you need to add to work on, and then just click add at one time rather than adding each document individually. So I'm going to look at the community association disclosure. So here we have our F322. And then the last document I'm going to pull up is the purchase and sale agreement. Now, I understand that for today's example, we're going through as if we're working with sellers, but I do want to pull up the purchase and sale just because it is probably going to be one of the most important documents that you'll use in your real estate career. So I just want to walk through filling that in so you can get more comfortable with it. So I'm going to type in purchase and sale. Actually, I think this is F201. So I just want to point out how you can search for F201, the actual form number, and it will still load the correct form. So start to learn those form numbers, and you'll start a habit once you start writing more and more contracts. So click select. So I have 4 forms selected. I'm going to click add. The page is going to reload. All of the documents are going to be in the Room Docs folder, which is fine because that's our default folder, but I want to organize them. So I want to separate out my listing agreement from my purchase and sale agreement. There are 2 different ways that you can move documents to other folders. The first way is if you roll your mouse over a document icon, you'll get a radio button in the top left-hand corner of that document. You can select that radio button by giving it a check. So you can do that. So here's my listing agreement. And anytime that you select a document, this toolbar will appear at the top of the gray area. And what you can do is just roll your mouse over until you find the move icon and click move. And it allows us to select a destination. So we'll select folder in current room. And then it'll show us all the folders that we have in that room. I'm going to select listing agreement and click move. The page will reload. And now those two documents are in my listing agreement folder. And then my other documents are down here. So if you have multiple documents to move, that's the simplest way. If you just need to move one document at a time, you can roll your mouse over the document icon, click on it, hold your mouse down, and then just drag it into the desired folder. And there you go. It is that simple. So now I have my listing agreement documents broken out for my purchase and sale. Any questions on anything so far? All right. So now let's start updating our documents. So we'll start with our listing agreement. To start editing, just click on it to open it up. DocuSign will load the form. And here we go. Here's a form now. We can start editing it. With everything, I always recommend to start at the top and work your way down, reading through each one of the fields. And as you start writing more and more contracts and agreements, you'll get more comfortable. And also be sure to check out Alita's classes every Tuesday morning if you can. And she walks through different parts of all the GAR forms every single Tuesday. So starting here at the top, we see it already added my property address, and this is information that it filled in directly from the details tab. And then below that, we have our tax parcel ID. So I'll get this from the property tax records. So I'm just going to type in a little fake number for now. One thing I'm going to point out too for this training this morning is this training is really going to be all about how to use DocuSign and how to fill in information in DocuSign. It is not going to be about what the correct information to put in these GAR forms. Anything that has to do with what the correct information is, please reach out to Lynn and Alita on that, since they are our compliance brokers. I just want to make sure you know where to put everything and how to use the forms. So legal description, I'm going to select attach as an exhibit here too. List price, it already added in $425,000. Now I do want to point out that for whatever reason, when DocuSign was mapping these fields, for anytime that there's a list price or a sales price, it doesn't include a comma. I don't know why. You can add it in there. It's just going to delete it. But so just be mindful not to add any extra zeros so you don't accidentally put this as, $4.25 million. Then we have the term of this agreement begins on this date. So I'm going to type in just today's date. Now you'll notice I'm typing the date in the numerical format. And the reason you want to do this in any date field that is in DocuSign, you always want to type out the numerical format versus actually spelling out March 19, 2021. Again, for whatever reason, when DocuSign mapped these date fields, they only allowed this format. So if you put in the full written out version, it will cause an error and it won't save any of your information that you've added to that form. So that can create a lot of extra work for yourself, and we don't want to do that. So we've added our dates here. We'll do marketing. So I'm just going to type in FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. Commission. All right. I've negotiated 6% with my seller, and I'm going to share 3% with that co-op broker. Scrolling down, commission adjustment. Don't need that. Separate commission of lease, protected period. I've negotiated 90 days. Agency and brokerage, we do not offer dual agency or sub agency. And the seller does not consent to the broker acting in dual agency, since we do not offer that. Scrolling down, any special circumstances, no bankruptcy, divorce, or others. Contract, no, we're good to hear. Seller does authorize the broker to assist in negotiating. We'll keep scrolling. Lots of verbiage and explanation. which Alita goes through all this in her classes, and that way you can explain and talk your clients through what all of these things mean. Now we have our brochures. All of the brochures are uploaded into DocuSign, so you can add those to your room. So send the brochures that are going to be most relevant to your clients for this transaction. So I'm just going to select a few of these. All right, and then scrolling down, we have our exhibit. So I'm going to do my legal description, and I'm going to make that exhibit A to my listing agreement. And scroll down, special stipulations. If you have any special stipulations, you can add those here. You can figure out what works well for your business. For whatever reason, I don't know why GAR gave such a small place to write special stipulations. It is what it is. If you have more stipulations that you want to include in your listing agreement, I'd recommend just using the additional stipulations page. So you need to check this box here and then also add that separate form to the room. And scrolling down, it's added our clients' names and email addresses so we can send these documents for a signature. And then scrolling down, we'll just go through and make sure that we fill in all the remainder of the information. Now you'll notice that some of these core pieces of information like the MLS office code and license number are blank. DocuSign is working on getting these fields set up so that way they will pre-populate every single time, because this information will remain the same for any document you work with in DocuSign. So I'm just going to go fill it in for now. And I recommend fill in as much of the information that you have, and it gives less of a reason for Lynn or Alita to provide any notes or feedback on your documents. All right. So now we've gotten to the bottom of the listing agreement. All we have to do is click Save and Close. You can click Save and Close here at the bottom of the page or up here in the top right-hand corner. And it's going to save all those updates that we've made to this document. Perfect. So now we can start working on the seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to open that up. And again, just like with the listing agreement, we're going to start at the top of the document and we're going to work our way down. So the seller's property disclosure is going to be an exhibit to a purchase and sale agreement. So I don't need to fill in this exhibit letter yet because it's not actually a part of an offer yet. So we can see here, the seller's disclosure exhibit to purchase and sale with an offer date of blank. We don't have that yet, and it populates our address, so we're good to go. Now you'll scroll down, you'll see all these places where information should be filled in or checkboxes for yes or no. You'll notice I have no ability to fill any of these in. It's missing these checkboxes. That is correct. For any disclosures in DocuSign, so whether it's a seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, lead-based payment, those documents are not to be filled in by us as the agents. They must be filled in by our seller clients, which means that me as the agent in this in DocuSign, I don't have permission to these fields. All of these fields are mapped to seller one. So seller one will have the ability to fill in this information. But I just wanted to point that out here because I don't want you to open this document and be like, oh no, the seller's property disclosure isn't working. And we're trying to get live tomorrow and you're trying to call me or Clark or Terry and you're like, oh no, like what do I do? It's correct. And I will walk you through when we're in the envelope how to double check and make sure that all those fields are properly mapped to your seller one. So I'm just going to scroll through and make sure that there isn't any information that I do need to update. But everything looks like it is set for seller one, which is good to go. Perfect. And then we have our seller's names over here to sign, and I'm going to click Save and Close. And then we're going to do the same thing for the community association disclosure. Double check this form. Again, we don't need to add an exhibit date or exhibit letter yet. And then agreement date we don't have. And then scrolling down here, just like the seller's property disclosure, all of these fields are not mapped to me, so I can't fill them in. they are mapped to seller one. So when I send this document to seller one, he or she will be able to fill this in. But I'll just go through, double check it, make sure there isn't any information that I am missing. So we are good to go. I'm going to click save and close because there's nothing else that I need to do to the community association disclosure. So let that save. All right. So I very quickly, I need to go use the restroom. So I'm going to take a quick, like 3-minute break, just go to use the restroom really quick, and then we'll jump right into the purchase and sale agreement, and then we'll be able to finish up. So I'll be right back. Hello, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. So we can jump right back in and get started with our purchase and sale agreement. So to get started working with our purchase and sale agreement, I'm just going to click on it to open it up. Give it a second to load. And again, just like everything else, we'll just start at the top and work our way down and fill in all the information that we have. So for an offer date, so we are going to, this is for writing a purchase and sale agreement, which I understand as a listing agent, you probably won't do, but just want to get you familiar with the document. We'll just type in today's date. Again, we're going to type it in that numerical format. We'll scroll down. Here we have our property address, which automatically loads from the details tab. I'll just add in my tax parcel ID. So I'm just going to type in a little number there. My legal description. I would recommend you always select attach as an exhibit here too. There are multiple places that you can find the legal description or limited warranty deed. You can find that either in the tax records, or you can reach out to our alliance partners at Campbell and Brannon, Gannick PC, and McMahon and Me, McLeod and Heller, and they'll be able to provide that for you pretty quickly. Scrolling down, purchase price of property paid by buyer. So let's say the buyer is offering $415,000 and they want the seller to pay $5,000 in closing costs. Now, for whatever reason, the closing costs field does allow you to put a comma there. I don't know, so I'm going to add it there just so it makes it easier to see. Closing date, let's make this 4/21/2021. And then possession will be at closing. Holder of earnest money, we're going to make this KWFA. Closing attorney, we'll do Campbell and Brannon. Earnest money will be paid by check. And you can see it's just super easy. Just go through, click, check the boxes that you need, fill in the blank squares. So we'll do $4,000 in 3 days of binding. Inspection, we're going to negotiate 10 days of due diligence. Scrolling down, lead-based paint. This home was not built in 1978. So we don't have to worry about lead-based paint. Coming down here to section 10, the buyer brokerage, we'll make this Harry Norman, and that agent is representing as a client. I'm representing my seller as a client, and I'm unaware of any material relationships. We'll give this until 12 p.m. And you can see you can just tab over between the fields on 3/20/2021 for an expiration. Oh, excuse me. 3/12 p.m. There we go. And then we'll just continue to scroll down, fill in any information. Keep scrolling down. All right, here we have our exhibits. For whatever reason, I don't know why the all cash sale exhibit is going to be checked. So we are going to go through here. We're going to have our legal description as exhibit A. So I'm just going to type exhibit A here. Then we're also going to use our community association disclosure. I'm going to make that exhibit C. And then my seller's property disclosure, I'm going to make that exhibit B. And then if you have your financing contingency, you can add that and any other exhibits you want to add as well. Scrolling down here, we have special stipulations. Again, this box is really small for stipulations. I don't know why it's so small, but all you do is you can start typing in your special stip here, add another one, more here, more stips, lots more. And it's not easy just to go through and type in your stipulations. Now, if you have a ton more stips, you could add the additional stipulations page. Or if you don't have too many more to add, I can show you in the envelope how we can add a text box and make the font size smaller so you can actually fit more text in this small box. So I'm good with my stipulations there. Now I'm going to scroll down. Now I'm working with the seller, so see the system automatically adds their name and their email address. Now, for me personally, I do not like to share any of my clients' contact information with a co-op agent. That's just a personal preference. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, that co-op agent is going to be very respectful of that relationship that I have with my clients. However, I don't want to chance it that I could potentially be working with an agent that may try to go around me and work directly with my clients and just kind of mess up things. So your first instinct, or my first instinct here, would be to delete my client's email addresses off of the purchase and sale agreement. However, do not delete those fields. Any fields that are mapped and pre-populated with information from the details tab, if you delete or change that information in a document, it makes that same change or deletion from the details tab. So if I were to delete my client's email addresses here, it would delete it off the details tab. And then when I go to send an envelope for signature, there won't be an email address associated with my client. So I wouldn't be able to send them the forms for signature. I will show you in the envelope how we can black out your client's email addresses so you can protect their privacy. Scrolling down, just going to go through, double check any of the fields and see if I need to add anything. So I'm going to type in Realtor Association, my fax number, my office code. And you may want to go through here and fill in the information for that co-op agent. I would actually recommend it. It just makes it one less thing for that co-op agent to have to do. So I'll just type in, let's do Jane Doe, license number Just, you get the idea, fill it in. Now, I will say this, just because you're filling it in does not mean that we're going to send it to them, to Jane Doe, through DocuSign. We just want to fill it in so it's less work for Jane to have to do when she presents this offer to her clients, and she's going to say, this agent is on top of his stuff. Nick's offer is really clean and he wrote a great offer. Let's just go ahead and accept it. That's ultimately the goal. So now we've gotten to the bottom of the purchase and sale agreement. So I'm going to click Save and Close. Perfect. So now that we've gone through and we've added all of our GAR forms, now our next step is to send these documents to our clients for review and signature. The way that we send documents through DocuSign for signature is through an envelope. And the way that Michael New explained it to me, envelopes to me, which I think is a really great analogy, is I think of an envelope in DocuSign like a manila envelope that you could have in your hands. And imagine if you had printed out all the copies of these GAR forms, you hand wrote in all the information, you paperclip them together, and then you put them in a manila envelope to hold them and organize them, and you put it on the edge of your desk. Then when you saw your clients, you picked up that manila envelope, handed it to your clients and say, please review and sign all these documents. An envelope in DocuSign is the same idea, where it's just organizing those documents and sending it to them. It also is kind of a fail-safe to make sure that we don't send anything to our clients for signature prematurely or incorrectly. So it makes sure that it is sending anything for signature is a very deliberate action. There are two ways that you can create an envelope. The first way is when you are in your Documents tab, you can roll your mouse over the document that you want to send for signature, select the radio button in the top left-hand corner, and then you can roll your mouse over the toolbar and get the Create Envelope button, and then you can click that, and it's going to create an envelope with just these documents. Now for today, I'm not going to do this because I want to walk you through the manual way, but the reason I wanted to point out how you can use the Create Envelope button is because as you are further along in a transaction, you're going to have a lot of documents in your room. And it's going to be much easier for you to select which specific documents you want to send for signature here in the Documents tab versus when I show you in a minute, having to scroll through a list of all the documents. So this is option number one. Option number two is if you click on the Envelopes tab, and then in the top right-hand corner, we'll select New. And now we are in the Envelope Creator. So we're just going to go through again at the top, start at the top and work our way down. So we're going to give this an envelope name. I would recommend that you actually name this something that you'll be able to recognize and reference. You will be sending numerous envelopes throughout a transaction, like 10, 20, 30, 40 envelopes. So you may have to go back at one point or another and double check dates and confirm information. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street. Exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. Perfect. Scrolling down, now we want to add documents to the envelope. So I'm going to select the Room Docs button because it's going to pull up all the documents that I've added in the room, which are those 4 documents we just walked through. And you'll see here, it's going to show me a list of every single document in that room. So this is why I was saying that once you get a ton of documents in your room, this list is going to be kind of difficult to read. So, but for now, since I only have 4, I'm going to select all 4 of them, and it's really easy, and I'll just click Add Selected. And now it loads all of those forms into my envelope. Now you will notice here that we're missing our affiliated marketing and wire fraud prevention disclosures from the office. The MCA office has set those up as templates. The reason is those forms do not have any fields for you to fill in or edit as an agent. They really are for notice for our clients. And the only thing that they have is a signature field for our clients. So what you want to do is you want to add those disclosures here in the envelope. So over in the far right-hand corner, I'm going to click on Add a Document, Use a Template. Then I'm going to select Shared with Me from the menu on the left-hand side. And this is going to pull up a list of all the templates the MCA office has created. Let's give this a second to load. Perfect. So now here's a list of all those documents. So scrolling down, we see here we have affiliated marketing and wire fraud, but this is a buyer version. And if I scroll down further, we have a seller version of these same disclosures. Now, both the buyer and the seller versions of the disclosures are the exact same in terms of content. However, the signature fields are mapped accordingly. So you want to make sure that you select the version of these forms, that match which side of the transaction you're representing. So today we're working with the seller. So I'm going to click on seller and click add selected. We'll give that a second to add. DocuSign is being a little slow this morning. Perfect. So now it's added our disclosures. So now we have our 6 forms that we want to send to our clients for review and signature. But you'll notice right now, all of these forms are just in alphabetical order of when they were added. I want my clients to review and sign these forms in a very specific order. I want them to sign the listing agreement before they ever sign a purchase and sale agreement. So it is at this stage within creating an envelope that we reorder the documents. And to do that, it's really simple. Just roll your mouse over the document icon, hold your mouse down and drag it into the position that you want. So we'll start here with our listing agreement. Then I want to move the seller's property disclosure, and I want that the second position. Then we have our community association disclosure, perfect. And then I want the disclosures followed by the purchase and sale. So I'm just going to move the purchase and sale agreement into this last position. So now when my client receives this envelope, they'll both be able to go through everything pertaining to the listing of their home and then going under contract for the sale of their home. So we are good to go there. If you ever wanted to add a document, let's say you had to upload a document that you got from a co-op agent or a disclosure that you updated or you received from Remind, you can click more and upload, and that's how you can upload a document directly from your computer. Scrolling down, we're going to click on add a recipient. When you are adding a recipient, you'll click on this button here and it's going to give you a drop-down menu of 3 options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. If you have pre-tagged roles here as a drop-down option, always select pre-tagged roles. It is very important that you select pre-tagged roles because that is what's going to provide your clients the ability to fill in and sign specific fields. All of these GAR forms have, and every single field on these forms are mapped to a specific individual. So since, for our seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure, I know seller 1 has to fill that in. Well, if I select room participants, none of those fields on those disclosures are going to be able to be filled in, and there aren't going to be any signature fields for my clients to sign either, which means I'm going to have to manually add all of that, which I don't want to do. It would take too much time. And it is a competitive market out there. I need to get my offer in as quickly as possible. So always select pre-tagged roles. Now, if you are uploading a PDF from your computer, you will have to manually add those signature fields, but it's much better to do it for 1 or 2 documents versus, 25 pages of GAR forms. So I'm going to click pre-tagged roles. And this pop-up window is going to show all the different roles that are included on these documents. So I'm going to select seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent. And then from the drop-down menu within each one, seller 1, I'm going to select my seller 1, so Tony Stark. I would recommend that when if you're working with 2 people, have a conversation and ask, who do you want to be the person responsible for filling in the information for the disclosures? Because you don't know, one person may have more information or want to be the one responsible for it. And the person that wants to fill that in will be seller 1. Seller 2, I'll pick Pepper Potts, and then listing agent, I'm going to select myself. Now you may see yourself in there twice, that's fine. Pick either one, it doesn't matter. Scrolling down, you'll see here we have seller 1 and seller 2. I'm not going to select either of these because it's just from a field mapped incorrectly. So I'm just going to manually add a signature field, but you don't want to select the same person in two different roles, it confuses the system. So we have our seller 1, seller 2, and listed agent information filled in. So I'm going to click add selected. We'll give it a second to load, and it's going to have all three contacts here. Perfect. So now there's a fair amount of information here that we're looking at. So we want to dissect it all. On the far left-hand side of each one of our recipients' names, there's a box, and it defaults to number 1 in each of them. These boxes on the left-hand side are going to be the signing order of these documents. So the system is going to default to 1, which means that everyone has the ability to sign at the same time. However, I don't want that to be the case. I know some agents prefer to be the first person to sign. So they'll send the document to themselves to sign. And then once they've signed, then their clients will be able to. However, for today, I want my clients to review first, then I can sign when they're done, so I can make some of these documents binding, and it just kind of makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to leave Tony Stark as seller 1 or as signer 1. I'm going to make Pepper Potts signer 2. So I'm just going to highlight 1 and change that to 2. The system will automatically reorder it for you. And then I'm going to change myself to be signer 3. So I'm going to be the last person to sign. So now we have our signing order. In here, within the larger rectangle, we have our client's name and email address. If you need to make any quick tweaks to their information, you can, but I would recommend just make sure that it is, just do a double check to confirm it's correct. To the right of that, we have a drop-down menu, and it's going to default to needs to sign. This is going to be the different permissions that you are providing to these individual recipients. So needs to sign means that there are fields in there that they need to review and sign. The next option is needs to view. So this is if you just need to send the document to someone so they can see it, double check it, make sure everything's good to go, but they're not actually a signing party to the contract. That's fine. CC receives a copy. So this might be if you were sending a document or a contract and it's about to go binding, you can include maybe the closing attorney or the lender, and they can receive a copy of that binding contract with all the documents once everyone has signed. I would say just be careful and give a heads up to any of those partners so they know that, hey, if you receive a DocuSign link, it's from me. That's just an option. And last is specify recipient, which you don't need to do anything for that. So I'm just going to leave it to needs to sign. And then to the right of that, we have a more dropdown, and we have two options: add and access authentication and add private message. If you're working with clients who are potentially uncomfortable with e-signing documents, we can add an access authentication code, and this will just add an additional layer of security. So before your sellers or your clients are able to sign, they're going to have to put in a code that you made up that'll give them access. So I can just click add access authentication, and I can just type in a code here. So I would say to Tony, hey, before you're able to sign, it's going to ask you for a code. Type in 12345. Just so that way no one can hack into Tony's email, start signing documents, and potentially buy a house under Tony's name without Tony's acknowledgement. I don't want to use that, so I'm going to click discard. And then the other option is add a private message. So I'm going to write a message specifically to Tony because Tony is seller 1, and Tony's going to have the ability to fill in all the disclosures. So I'll say, hi, Tony, please be sure to fill in all of the information for the seller's property disclosure and the community association disclosure. Thank you, Nick. So that will just go only to Tony, so that way he has that reminder of like, oh, right, I need to fill in the disclosures. Other than that, it looks like our recipients are in the correct order. We've added all of them. We should be good to go. Now I'm going to scroll down. Oh, receiver, we can specify recipient. I'm just going to delete that. Perfect. So we're all in the correct order. Now we can add a message to our recipients. The email subject is going to default to please DocuSign. I would recommend just leave that and then just update this to 1234 Main Street, exclusive seller listing agreement, and purchase and sale. Now I'm using abbreviations for these documents. I don't recommend that with your clients, but just for time for today, I'm just using abbreviations. But you want to make sure that they understand what it is that they're going to be reviewing and signing. I would also recommend that before you send anything over to them, give them a heads up. Hey, I'm about to send over this document. We've talked about it. This is the information. Please review it and let me know if you have any questions. And then a little email. Hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and sign. Thank you, Nick. And once we're good with all of this, so we've gone through, we've given our envelope a name, we've added our documents and put them in the correct signing order. We've added our recipients. We've put those recipients in the correct signing order, added our little private message here, and added an email message. What we do is we click next in the top right-hand corner, and this takes us to the envelope editor. And this is where we can go through and double check all the signature fields and all the fill-in fields are mapped correctly. So we'll give this a second to load. So there's a fair amount of information here. So let's walk through the layout of this before we actually dive into the actual documents. So in the event that you ever need to go back and make a change to a document, there's this go back button up here in the top left-hand corner. So just click on that. Below that, we have a drop-down menu, and you can see here we have Tony Stark, which is seller one with a yellow circle. If you click on that drop-down menu, you can see we have a list of all the recipients with a corresponding color. If I click on Pepper, you'll notice her color is blue, and now all these standard fields turn to blue. And I have myself as purple. Now these colors are randomly assigned, it doesn't matter, but I do want to point out these colors because it's going to help you visually identify which fields are mapped to which person. So as you're scrolling through 30 pages of GAR forms, you can see there's a yellow, there's a blue, there's a purple, there's a yellow. It makes it really simple. Below that drop-down menu, we have all of our standard fields. So if you need to add a signature field, initial, date signed, name, email company, a text box, a checkbox, a radio button, anything down here, you can do that. In the middle here, we have a preview of the actual forms. So this is where we can go through, double check, make sure that we didn't miss anything. All the information is good. And if we need to maybe add a little text box or a checkbox that we did miss, we can do that here. To the right, we have thumbnails of all of the forms. So you can see this is the order of our documents. So listing agreement, property disclosure, community association disclosure. I can expand any of these and it's going to show me little thumbnails of each of the documents so I can quickly click on any one of those pages to pull or go directly to that page. And as I scroll down, you'll notice here on page 9, it has these colored tabs on the top left-hand corner. And that's to visually let me know that on this page, there is a field that is mapped to each person that is a recipient. So I know, okay, let me just double check page 9 here. And then here we have our signature fields, date signed fields for seller 1, seller 2, and then myself as the listing agent. And we have those thumbnails for all of our documents. So now let's start from the very top of our document and we'll do a quick double check and make sure we have all of our signing fields and everything set to go. So I'm just going to scroll down. Oh, for whatever reason, my exhibit, here we go, double check. My legal description did not show up here. So I'm going to select myself from the drop down. I'm going to add a checkbox. I'm just going to place that right there over that box and I'm going to double check it. So now that field has a checkbox. So we have our exhibit. So we're good to go. Scrolling down, everything else looks good. All right. So let's scroll down. Let's get down to page 9. Perfect. So here we double check our client signatures. Perfect. Good to go. Here's mine. Now you'll notice this bottom field. This is what makes this seller's listing agreement binding. Now, since I've set myself up to sign last, I can actually make this document binding because one of the great features about DocuSign is that once everyone has reviewed and signed all the documents, the system automatically sends out signed copies of all those documents to everyone that was a recipient. So I can save myself a step of having to go through and manually make this binding, and I can just do it when I sign it. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to text field, and I'm going to add that text field right here. And then I'm just going to format that to fit in here. Then I need to add text fields over here. So another great feature within DocuSign is that you can right mouse click on a field and click copy and then click paste. and it's just going to duplicate that exact same text field. So that way I don't have to reformat. And then you'll notice that when I click on this text field, it is purple and it's colored in purple. Whenever you click on a text field or a field, this menu will appear in the top right or on the right-hand side. You'll notice that it says required field is checked. If I uncheck it, then that text box becomes blank, but I want to make it required. And required means that when I go to sign, the system is going to stop me on that field. So what I want is I want DocuSign to stop me to fill in the information to make this document binding. So that way, once I'm done signing and the system sends out the documents to my clients, it's already binding. It makes it super easy. Then I'm also going to add this date signed field. So that way the system can go ahead and add that date there. So we are good to go with our listing agreement. I'm going to scroll down to seller's property disclosure. Now you'll notice here, all these fields are mapped, are highlighted, are outlined in yellow. Yellow, as we know, is for Tony, which is seller one, which is great. However, when I click on this field here, you'll notice that it's not a required field. And I know that because it's not filled in yellow, it's just outlined in yellow. So what that means is since it's not a required field, the system is just going to jump from required field to required field to required field, which is probably going to be signature field to signature field to signature field. And what's going to happen is that your client's not going to know that he or she needs to scroll up and fill in all this information on the disclosure. And then your client's going to be like, I tried to, but DocuSign wasn't working. I couldn't fill it in. Well, there's a really cool trick that you can do. For this first field here on the seller's property disclosure, what year was the main residential dwelling constructed? You can select that text box and then come over to the menu on the right-hand side and click required field. Now it is filled in yellow, so the system is going to stop on this field and it's going to require that my seller fill in a date here. But what that also is going to do is going to stop here, and it's going to make it much easier for my seller client to then go through and select the different buttons and fill in all of the correct information. Now, if you wanted to, you could go through and make each one of these boxes required. That would take a lot of time and I wouldn't recommend it. But just by selecting this first box here, that should be enough to get your client in the right place to fill in the rest of this information. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to just double check and make sure all these fields are highlighted yellow, which they are, which is great. We're scrolling down. Perfect. Now we have our client signature and date. Good to go. Now we have the same thing for the community association disclosure. We have all of these fields and they're all outlined in yellow, but none of them are required. Well, I don't know the specific type of association that my clients have, so I don't want to make any of these fields required up here. But what I can do is I can come down here to the name of the association. I can select that text field and I can make this required. Now, this is going to make it a lot easier for your client to then select, oh, right, I have a mandatory homeowners association with this amount and this many installments. So I can just make this name of association required. So I'm going to scroll down, just double check everything. Again, everything is mapped to seller one. And I know that because seller one is Tony and that is yellow. Here's my seller's initials. Perfect, good to go. Now we have our affiliated marketing. Now you'll notice here that I don't have any signature fields for either client. So I'm just going to manually add those, which is why we're double checking. I'm just going to reformat the just to fit just a little bit. Do date signed. Then I'll select Pepper, signature field, and then date signed. Perfect. Now we'll scroll down to our wire fraud prevention. Now, for whatever reason, whenever the MCA office makes this document, it moves the signature field. So I'm just going to move that up right there to the line, and I'll do the same thing for Pepper. And you'll notice this field here says full name. DocuSign will automatically add in your client's name based on what you filled in on the details tab here. So it is super easy. So you don't have to write that in. It does it automatically. Scrolling down, now we have our purchase and sale agreement. Everything looks good to go. Here I correctly checked that box as the legal description. We have our seller's signature here, our initial here. Scrolling down. Lots of explanation. All right, just double check and make sure that our exhibits and their corresponding letters are all correct, which they are. Now, I told you earlier, I'll show you how to add a text field here. So let's say if you want to add some more stipulations and you didn't want to do an additional stipulations page, what you can do is you can add a text box. So I'm going to select myself. Then I'm going to click on text box and I'm going to add a text box over here. And then I'm going to format it to fit this space. Now I'm going to make this not required. I'm going to make it read only. And by making it read only means that this field will appear when every single person signs. So I'm just going to start typing in more lots of stips. Now you'll notice here I have enough stipulations that I have to scroll through this box. However, you can't scroll through a PDF. So what you can do is you can highlight all the text in here. And then in the menu on the right-hand side, I can come to formatting. And then I can edit the font size to font 7. And now it fits all of those stipulations in this text box. Now, I will preface that, which you're probably not going to make any friends or fans sending over stipulations that are really small to read on either the co-op agent side or the closing attorney, but it is a workaround to prevent having to add additional pages. So that we've added our stipulations. Now let's continue to scroll down. Now we have our signature fields. So we have Tony and Tony's email address and Pepper's email address. So I told you earlier I would show you how to hide your client's email address. So if you want to protect their privacy, all you have to do is over here on the left-hand side, there's an icon of a pen. It says pre-fill tools. And then there's a line option. So I'm going to click on line. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to click and add a line over my client's email address. Now it's going to default to thin red line. I can come over here to color in the menu, select black. And then for thickness, I can just make that a 10-point thickness and just reposition that. And now my client's email address is hidden. I'm going to do the same thing for Pepper. So I'm just going to right mouse click on this line, click copy, and then paste, and drag this over Pepper's email. And there we go. Scrolling down, we'll just double check all my fields and we are good to go. So now that we've double checked our documents, we've added in any missing signature or text fields. If you want to, you can do a recipient preview. And this is going to give you a quick preview of what it's going to look like for your clients to sign. Now you'll notice up here we have the ability to sign over on a computer, what it looks like to sign on a tablet, and what it looks like to sign on a mobile phone. So if you're in a multiple offer situation and you need to get this document signed as quickly as possible, your clients do have the ability to sign while they're out at dinner or doing whatever. If you click on phone here, it's going to give you a preview of what it's going to look like. Now, I will tell you this, it's going to be hard to read and there's a lot of important information on here, but just know that your clients do have the ability to sign on their phone. See, it's really small, but you could go through here and just double check everything. So don't let that deter you from getting those documents signed. So I'm going to click the X in the top right-hand corner to get out of the preview. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click send because I'm ready to send these documents out for signature. So we'll click send. See, now we're in our envelopes that let us know that we're waiting for others. So I'm going to open up my email. And I'm going to open up my KWFA Tech email. So here we have our please DocuSign 1234 Main Street. I'll scroll down here. We have, hi, Tony, please be sure to fill in the info for the SPD and CAD. So that's that private message. And then here's my overall message to both Tony and Pepper. So I'm going to click review document. So I'm going to sign as Tony. Give it a second to load. Have them check, agree to electronic records and signatures, continue, and then click start. And this is going to jump to that first required field. So that's why it's going to be important for you as the agent to talk through this information with them so they know exactly what's in here. And then click sign. It's going to ask Tony to confirm his signature. adopt and sign. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why that field is on there twice. That is very strange. All right, so scrolling down here, we have the seller's property disclosure, and you can see I made this field required, so it stopped Tony here to fill in this information. So this is built in 2004, and now it's a lot easier for Tony to go through here, and he can type in all the info he needs to. And he can scroll through and he can check all these boxes. And I'm just going to go through and I'm going to check some of this. I'm not going to do the whole document, but I want to show you that when we go to sign as Pepper, that all this information that Tony's filled in will appear, so Pepper can give this a once over to double check the information. Let me just scroll down. And let me just check a bunch of these little boxes here. All right. And then Tony will sign. And then again, we come to sellers or the community association disclosure. So we're going to fill this in, name of HOA. And then I can come up here. We have a mandatory homeowners association. That's $1,000 and paid in 4 installments. And then person's name. And he can just type in all this information. You can come down here and include, check all the boxes for all the relevant information. Now, one thing about the community association disclosure that I'm going to point out and confirm this with Lynn and Alita is, but make sure that your clients fill this in accurately and correctly, because if they do not disclose any costs or fees that are included as a part of the HOA, your seller client will then be responsible for paying those fees at closing. So just be sure that they don't breeze through this like I am right now, and that they actually fill in the correct information. So here, client's going to initial, sign, initial. And why is it not initialing? There we go. Okay. And then sign. Oh, it looks like these boxes are on here twice for whatever reason. Okay, so that was really strange. Now, Tony's all done. So Tony's going to click finish. Your clients have to click finish. It's going to have a pop-up window to ask them if they want to create an account, which will say no, no thank you, no thanks. And then you need to make sure that your clients see this "You're all done" page. And the reason this is so important is because this is how your clients will know that they've actually completed filling these documents in. And then that way the documents can go to the next person for review and signature. So I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to open up another email. I'm going to open up my personal email right here. And now we have our email for Pepper. Please review and sign. So Pepper will now review documents. Again, Pepper will agree to use electronic signature. Continue. Start. Pepper's going to sign. Confirm signature. Click adopt and sign. Now it just jumped all the way to the bottom of that seller's property disclosure, but I'm going to scroll up because I want to show you how all of these fields that Tony filled in actually appear. So it does give Pepper the ability to double check any information to make sure that if he fills something in incorrectly, that you guys can get it fixed before you actually go live. So I'll click next, sign, signed, initial, signed, signed. Let me click finish. No, thank you. You're all done. So Pepper is good to go. So I'm going to close out of this tab. And now I'm going to come into my personal email or my work email, and now it's my turn. Nicholas Core via DocuSign, please DocuSign. Review documents. And we'll continue, start. So I'm going to sign. And then it takes me to that required field. So this is where I can make this binding. So I'll just make this 12 p.m. on 3/19. So fill in, sign. Now I'm all finished. I don't want to log in because I already have another browser open. So now what I want to also show you really quickly. So if I come into, I can just delete these really quick. If you give it a minute, the system DocuSign sends out an email with all the completed signed documents. So here, all parties have completed, please this envelope. And then here are the attachments of these signed PDFs. So if your seller ever wanted to come back and look at these, double check, perfect, signed, come all the way to the bottom. It is signed by all parties and it's binding. So it's super simple. Now, I would recommend that you still send these to your clients so they have everything organized. But again, this is providing them with actual notice of these signed documents. So now that we're done with signing, let's go back into DocuSign because I'm going to reload this page for the envelopes and it's going to show me that it's been completed. I can click on this envelope and it's going to show me the date and time that everyone signed. So I'm good to go. I'm going to go back to the Documents tab. And then I'll scroll down to my Room Docs folder, and you can see here all these documents with the green check mark icon that say signed. And everything's defaulted into that Room Docs folder. So I want to, again, organize my documents. So I'm going to move all the documents related to my exclusive seller listing agreement. I'm going to select them. And I'm going to move them into my listing agreements folder. Select folder in current room, and then listing agreement and click move. Perfect. So there are all of our forms and all the signed ones. So we are good to go. Now that we have all of our signed documents, now we need to go into command and we need to upload those for compliance review. So I'm going to click into command. Let me just So in command, we have these folders in our documents tab with these list of documents that we need to upload. So since we have connected our document, our room to command, I can come over here and I can click add a file. Then I can select source of documents, DocuSign, and it's going to pull up all of the documents that I have in DocuSign. So I can scroll down to my listing agreement folder and I can look for my exclusive seller listing agreement -signed. So it's going to list everything that's in there. So you want to make sure that you find the correct signed version and click, select it, and then assign. And it's that easy. Now we have a lot more other documents to add. You could go through and do one by one, or you can come up here and click attach multiple files. And again, we'd select source as DocuSign, and it's going to pull up all the different documents that we can upload and all the lists from DocuSign. So I can just go through here and I can select the community association disclosure, signed, seller's property disclosure, scroll down and find that document, signed, Rawls Group affiliated marketing, signed, and then our Rawls Group wire fraud, signed, and then click attach. And it's that easy. Then once you have all your documents uploaded, you can click submit to MC, and it's this button that you need to click, and this is going to send Lynn and Alita a note saying, hey, there are documents for you to review in command, and they're going to go through and review and make sure that all the information on these contracts are correct and let you know of any changes or updates you need to make sure they are compliant. We are right at 11:30 this morning. What questions do you have? Anything I can show you again? Anything I can clarify for you?
Hey, Nick.
Yep.
For instance, yesterday, we created an envelope. How do I go in there and delete that envelope that I created yesterday that we're not going to be used to use again?
You actually don't even need to worry about deleting it.
No?
It's not going to do anything. It's fine. But if you wanted to, you just go into the envelopes tab, and then you could open up that envelope, and then it should give you the ability to delete. There should be a drop down menu, but you don't really have to worry about it. It's not going to do anything, and your clients won't see it.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Anything else? All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. And as you're playing around and using DocuSign, please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions. I'm always here to help.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.